And welcome to the Social Justice Forums. I am your host, Daren Jaime. We thank you for joining us. Now, if you're asking the question, what is this show all about? Well, we bring you a forum discussing and providing deeper understanding on the issues as well as the inequities that many communities face. Things like systemic inequalities to pressing social problems. Our guests provide multiple perspectives and insights to help us better understand and address all of these challenges. So, we invite you to stay connected with us. The Social Justice Forum starts now. And welcome back. Daylight Africa is an exceptional travel initiative presenting captivating and transformative experiences through the mesmerizing African continent. Now, dedicated to fostering cultural exploration as well as historical discovery and meaningful community engagement, Daylight Africa is devoted to delivering travelers with genuine and authentic encounters that surpass the usual tourist experiences. And here now to share more, I've got the founder of Daylight Africa, Sheikh Musa Drammeh, and Sheikh, good to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for having me again.
Listen, I'm interested in this because there's a couple of things that I'll get to in our time of sharing. One is that I think let's talk locally, abroad.
Okay.
There is this disconnect between the African community. I'm not saying African American, African community and community. I'll just put it like that. Particularly here in New York City. Agree?
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's on the part of Africans. I'm saying it's on the part of community that sometimes ignorance can keep us marginalized.
Absolutely. Yes. And we have been fighting tooth and nail to make sure that, such, divisive elements within us will no longer exist. I remember a couple of years ago when there was a incident on Webster Avenue between 170 and 171. A New York Times reporter was doing a story, and the headline was, African Americans are jealous of the African immigrants. And I met the reporter and I said, if you put that, then we'll sue you. These individuals live together. They live in a community that almost everybody suffers. They suffer injustice, poverty, violence. This is not one group against the other. It is the community reality. And, we went back and forth. I said, we will not participate in this, and we don't want such a language, to be perpetuated. We are one family. We may come from different backgrounds, or we may arrive here differently, but we're one family, and we want to maintain that. And that's what the story was never ever published. And so that's one of the stories that we always fight. In 2013, there was a city council race because Helen Diane Foster, was leaving, and there was a vacancy. So 5 African immigrant candidates were among the candidates running, and the current board president, Vanessa Gibson, was brought in from the assembly to run for the seat so that the seat will remain within the African American hands. And we had a meeting at my office, and the meeting was that no matter how much you want to be elected, we will never ever use divisive rhetoric, dividing our communities. We can all vie for the same position, but we do it as a family. And from day one until the end, we never ever use African immigrants versus African Americans. We always, come as a family, obviously running for the same seat. So we're cognizant of it, but the leadership is very strong in making sure that such a divisive rhetoric will never ever be tolerated or normalized.
Let me go outside of the cityscape, because I remember my trip to Kenya and spending time in Kenya. It was amazing that people in Kenya say to me, I didn't know America was like that. And then I, from the American side, said, there are parts of Africa that I didn't know was like that.
Correct.
Because for so long, we've only gotten certain pictures.
You got Tarzan.
Right. Right. So I said, right.
Yeah.
We got that's all we got.
Absolutely.
Huts, right?
Yes.
But the reality is Africa has booming economy
Yeah.
in some areas. The Black Panther movie wasn't far off.
Correct.
Right? And
Correct.
there's a whole lot that needs to be said about Africa. So part of what you do is you're also organizing tours too.
Yes.
Internationally
Yeah.
to have people take a look
Yes.
at Africa.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I travel all over the world, and my goal when I travel is to see what makes a place either advanced or not advanced. Everywhere that I go, my goal is to see what makes them advance. The educational system, the innovation, the startup, so-called programs and everything else. I do the same thing in Africa. Africa is the first and most consequential continent in the world. A continent, the only continent that sits in the middle of the universe, that is close to every other continent, yet we have the least trafficked, continent. The reason for that is people do not get the right message, from Africa. Let me tell you a joke, Dean Memminger, New York.
I'm already laughing.
Yeah, Dean Memminger. I called Dean Memminger after the fire tragedy that killed these African kids, and I said to Dean, "You're my friend. You guys have done a wonderful job. You must accompany these bodies so that you can show it to your viewers, because New York City deserves a continuation of what happened. You have done a great job. Let them see the other side." And Dean said, "Are you crazy? Traveling to Africa?" I said, "Yes." And then finally I talked to Dean's boss and everything, and when he agreed, to go, I met him at the airport. Half of his suitcase was all kinds of medicine, snake medicine, everything. He thought that he was going to be dead. And I'm saying this to say, if Dean, educated, well-traveled, reporter, has that type of feeling, imagine ordinary people who have never had that chance. And there are many, 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 many stories. In 2017, I was on a business trip in East Africa. And I was traveling from Nairobi, Kenya, into Arusha, Tanzania. And it was late afternoon, and the sun was setting. I have never experienced such beauty, the sun reflecting these mountains. I mean, they're so beautiful. So I told the driver, even though I'm an African, but I live in New York for too long, I forget nature. Can we worship nature a little bit? So we came out, and then, we watched the sun setting, watching these mountains. From there, I said, the world needs to know the other side of Africa. They're looking at Africa as a dark, desperate, impoverished continent. This is not the truth. So that is how Daylight Africa came. So now, let's create the Daylight of Africa. And for 7 years, we've been writing and corresponding to governments and authorities. And finally, last year, we launched it. And we took people who never ever, by the way, traveled, not even Africa, but anywhere else. We took them to Senegal and Gambia for 9 days. They had a wonderful time. Now, again, our tours, it's not like we're showing the best of everything. We chose September because September is rainy season, so that you're exposed, to the difficulties, people face day to day. Because we want people to have accurate portrayal of what Africa is. We're not sugarcoating anything. We're not taking you to 5-star hotel so that you don't know the poverty that is affecting us. We want to show you everything. We travel on the road. You see it all. But at the end of the day, one thing they know, Africa is the future. Because every single thing that the world depends on and has been stealing out of Africa is still there, and they can never finish it. Today we're talking about, Niger just had a coup d'etat, and the whole world is going crazy. Because why? If you look at the Italians, the France, the Americans, all of them are there stealing and stealing and stealing what Niger has so that they can continue to develop. So we want people, especially the victims of transatlantic, enslavement terrorists, to have the same opportunity, to be able to go and see where they come from and the opportunity that lies ahead. The moment we build that family bond, the rest is history.
Yeah, my African sister says it like this. She said the vibranium is real.
Absolutely.
Talk about the struggle is real, the vibranium is real.
Absolutely.
And that meaning there's a lot of opportunity and there's some things that people really want from across the world that sometimes we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. So as you have people who travel to Africa and they have a new perspective of what Africa looks like, what does the tour consist of? Because you said you get to the rough part,
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you also have the opportunity for them to embrace community and community leaders.
Absolutely. Two things that we did as part of the tour. Number one, before we went to the United Nations, and then we formulated 7 points that we want every African government to agree on. Those 7 points includes every person that comes out of the transatlantic enslavement terrorism, meaning that every victim, if they go to Africa, they are not going as a tourist or guest or stranger. They're going home. Therefore, every right that they had before they left the continent will be automatically restored. Meaning that if they want to buy a home, they have the same right as the person born and raised there. If they want to open business, they do not have to be entangled with taxes or foreign whatever. When they go to Africa, they go home. And we push that. Now, we started with Senegal because last year, the president of Senegal was the chairman of the African Union. And then we went, same thing with the Gambia. Now, we are going to Washington, D.C. to meet with every ambassador to have them sign it so that every African-American, Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean that travel to Africa will travel there as somebody who, went overseas and coming back. You're not going there as descendants of this and that. You're going there as an African, that maybe overstay on your vacation or whatever, but now you're home and all the rights that the citizens of Africa, have, you also, have it. That's one thing. The other thing that we also did with these stores is that we've seen almost on a weekly basis a lot of these young Africans, mainly, boys, risking their lives trying to escape out of Africa to go to Europe. These are economic migrants, and now we're experiencing, one of the largest right here in New York City. We're saying, let's change that. You're coming out of the most resourceful continent in the world, a continent that the West depend on for the economic development. Something is not right, so we're working now with the top African universities to create centers where we can retain intelligence. We can help them. At the same time, we're working with multinational corporations so that they can outsource some of the work that need to be done. A lot of the work that I do, guess who do the work? The Africans. A lot of my job, we publish 4 newspapers. Everything, the layout, everything is done by the Africans. A lot of people don't know. My operation pretty much is in Africa. People don't ever think, this magazine is done in Africa. So we want that, people that have jobs that are shipping it to China, to India, to begin looking Africa as an outsourced outlet. And so that these kids, will have, some things to pay their bills and, maintain their lifestyle without escaping to Africa. Because what they're going for Europe, they can gain, in Africa with little help. So those are the 2 programs that come, with this, Daylight Africa tour.
So say somebody can't have the resources to actually make the trip, go to Africa. What can we do here, locally, to embrace Africa and support?
Yes, technology allows us now to create a family setting because right now even the villages that I've never known, they're on Facebook, they're on, WhatsApp and everything else. What we can do here, there are a lot of churches, there are a lot of religious, organizations, especially churches, that have for years and years and years, putting programs that really enlighten the general public about Africa and the need, for reconnection. So I would say, search which church or which religious organization, mostly Christian organizations, that are very, very connected to the continent, and support them, support their thing. They take kids, they take their, congregants. They have connection to the continent, and those are the places that you need to support. Not multinational charity organizations that have offices in the highest buildings in the West. Right. Just go to the local churches and local schools that have connection and support them.
Daylight Africa Week is coming up, and that's coming up soon in September. Tell people the dates.
Absolutely. I am taking a beautiful group again. We're leaving JFK September 2nd. We're going to be there until September 10, September 11. We're going to be in Senegal. Senegal is where Gore Island, the door of no return. Every victim of the transatlantic enslavement trade need to go and see the door of no return. The moment you stand there and you're looking at the ocean and you know this is the final step from your continent to the Western world, and you also look to the right and to the left, you see the dungeons, small places, no window, and they put hundreds of people. You see, you said to yourself, my great-great-great-grandparents came out of this tragedy. Everyone needs to go there, because the moment you go there, you have a different perspective. So I'm taking a group to Senegal and Gambia, and we're leaving September 2nd. We're coming back September 11th. And if you want to go, just let me know. If not, every year, September 2nd to September 10th has now been officially Daylight Africa Week on the continent. You can come from all over the world. You can go for whatever reason. Let us know, and we'll facilitate that trip.
And I see also in your travels, you also have the father of Akon.
The father of Akon was so happy, and the reason for that is Akon has been one of the voices that are saying to the African Americans, he said, I grew up among you. I know the environment, and I know the mentality, and I know also the education, and I know the misunderstanding of the continent you have. I want you to come home and see what I saw. And this way, at least, what you think is Africa is, you will see the opposite. And so the father was there to really say that, they're in support of, this initiative. So, we're happy about it.
Sheikh Musa Drammeh, got to leave it there. Mm-hmm. But thank you.
Absolutely.
So for people who want to find out more information, again, let's give it to them before we go.
Absolutely. DaylightAfrica.org, DaylightAfrica.org, or you can Google it, Daylight Africa, and you will see me speaking to everybody about Daylight Africa.
All right. Yeah. Well, listen, taking a quick break. We'll be back with more right after this.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
One of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history at Post nightclub in Orlando.
Walking into the building for the first time after the shooting, it was crippling. but it had to be preserved. If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart. It is the power of love in its rawest form.
We all know what it's like to feel alone. But it just takes one new connection. Want to get out of here? To empower many.
This is unbelievable.
It doesn't take a superhero to bring forces together. We all have the power to reach out.
Let's go!
And help someone feel like they belong.
Pretty cool, huh?
We are stronger together.
Attacks against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are on the rise.
My simple solution to the problem was remove people from the scene and help them feel safer. In terms of the hate crimes, I think there is so much more work to be done. We really need to come together and tackle this issue as a community.
And we are back. United Renters for Justice is an organization dedicated to pursuing permanently affordable democratic housing and driving vital structural changes within the housing sector. Committed to the principles of community, justice, transformation, and solidarity, the organization represents a collaborative force of Minneapolis tenants uniting against the adverse effects of the housing system. Joining me now to share their point of view on the matter, I'm joined by the organizer at United Renters for Justice, Shanika Henderson. And Shanika, glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And so a little bit about the work that you do. Obviously, advocacy is a huge component of it. But give us a little bit of an idea as to how things are out there.
Well, things are going great. We've won a lot of wins for the tenants. I am also a tenant for the people that we are fighting against as well, called Progress, also known as previously Havenbrook Homes. I have been a renter from them for about 10 years now, and I am fully committed into the fight. I connect well with the people. And when they hear that I am also a renter and I'm working to fight against them, that gives them a strength out of this world. So I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and I'm fully committed.
What are we seeing by way of unresponsible landlords, and I should say unresponsible and unresponsive?
It makes you feel human. The human, it makes you feel like you're not human. They treat you as if, it's just all about the money. And we know it's about the money, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to be able to live in a dignified way. And they have a way of making you feel like that's not what they want. And so the fight it's been a huge struggle with even making people feel like they deserve the right to be able to speak up for themselves. People get so wrapped up in, hey, I just want to have a roof over my head, so I don't feel like I need to speak up for my family. And what my job is to do is to let them know, hey, don't be afraid to even speak up. I'm speaking up, and I want to speak up for you, but I need for you to speak up and join the fight together. So it's been challenging, that's for sure.
Yeah. And when we talk about this, really getting to the heart of the matter, you got issues as far as it could be heat, it could be just maintenance. And what's it like? Give us an inside look as to what it's like trying to get a hold of a landlord, or is it the second part, getting a hold of them and still them not responding, kicking the can down the road, if you will?
Oh, it's all of those factors. It's getting a hold of them, and once you actually get a hold of them, I talked to a tenant a couple of days ago that actually was having electrical problems, and we know that you need to send a certified electrician to come out there and assess your home so that he can know what exactly is pinpointing the problem, and they are sending people just like somebody out of your backyard to do these fixes when they do. And also people are dealing with mold, leaky basements, and also cold homes in the wintertime. And it gets really cold here in Minnesota. And people are dealing with no heat, refrigerator outages. And this company has really been putting us on the back burner when it comes to some of these tenants that have not spoke up during the campaign. And it's crazy because people that do speak up, they answer their calls like within seconds. So they kind of know who is fighting for themselves and who isn't, and they're using that as like leverage. And it's very heartbreaking because at the end of the day, this is $1 billion company that we're dealing with. So they're not losing any money by coming out and doing repairs. And some of these repairs are like detrimental to the family. They have kids. These are all single family homes, 2 to 3 bedrooms, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms. So these are children that need their refrigerator, heating, lights. And some people are scared to even sleep in the night with some of the repairs that they are ignoring.
Yeah. Talk to me about response from community, because as you have you have these landlords and they're absentee. You have landlords who are not responsive, and then you have landlords who are unresponsible. You also have the community who's actually dealing with this. You have constituents who are really living this day to day. And as you say, being afraid is one of the things that, and also frustrated. To get people to the table to say, listen, I want to speak up about my rights as a tenant. We know that sometimes there's a lot of fear that's there too, because some people don't want to speak up because, fear of being put out or fear of reprisal. But for you, you've also had a good job in terms of bringing people together. But can you give me a little bit about that component, your ability to bring people together, but also the reality that there's so many people out there that aren't taking advantage of an organization such as yours because they just don't want to get involved. I don't want to rock the boat, even though their boat is sinking.
Yeah. I door knock a lot. I will door knock, and as I'm door knocking, if someone opens that door, I present them with, hey, I'm working with United Renters for Justice. I want to see how things have been going since you have been renting from Progress. I am also a renter, and when I do tell them that, they're like, what? And I let them know I'm not working with your landlord. I'm working against your landlord. And I tell them my story, and I let them know, look, we have about 3 other people on your same block that are renting from this company. And is there anything that you would like to tell me? I open it. I'll sit on the porch with them for as long as it takes for them to find some comfort. And again, I always go back to what my family and myself has to endure within these 9 years of being a renter. And I just recently got a home. I let them know, look, we're fighting to be able to speak up for you. We want no retaliation. So once you join our organization, we want to ensure these people that once you tell your story, you don't have to worry about them targeting you and coming back to say, hey, now that you're working with United Renters for Justice, we're going to put you out. And I just try to empower the people because it's a lot of people of color that are renting from this organization, and I feel like they're targeting us because at a point in time, they didn't want to even accept Section 8 vouchers from a lot of the tenants that had those subsidies to be able to provide for their families. And once we started organizing like hardcore in the streets, we were able to get the attention from Progress, where they even moved about 70 to 80 tenants and gave them newly renovated homes because they knew that we meant business. We started calling 311, which is a city resource that files a city complaint, and that goes documented. Like if someone calls 3 to 4 times and let them know, look, my basement is flooding, my windows are broken, my heat isn't working, my refrigerator has been out, for about 5 to 6 days. This goes documented so that they don't have that feedback of you got to move, you know.
Right.
So it gives them a sense of stability to let them know, speak up for yourself. And like I tell them, I tell my story, research my name. I'm going undercover, uncover, and we need to speak up.
Well, I want to take a look behind you because as I see a sign behind you, I know that it's in Spanish, and I know that there's a lot of Spanish-speaking people right there in Minneapolis. But we also know that the language can be the language barrier can be huge in terms of receiving services, and also immigration issues that also make people feel as though I don't want to get involved, and sometimes have to live in less than humane conditions. How's it been going in terms of reaching the brown community, as I tend to call it, because they're the ones also that are adversely affected. You got black and brown.
Oh, the brown community, they are incredible. They stand strong. They stand together. I have even gotten my 12-year-old daughter to be able to speak Spanish. She's been speaking Spanish since she was 5 years old. She's very fluent. And I wanted her to be able to fight in solidarity with us, you know, come together with the brown community because they are so powerful. And when they get out of here, they mean business. It is a language barrier, but we have interpretation, people that can come and speak that and be able to break those language barriers for us. And it goes pretty well. I kind of am glad that I'm able to work with them every day because they give me power. I thought that the black community was solid, but they are really solid. And when we all both come together, it gets pretty deep.
Yeah. How's it been dealing with residential landlords, corporate landlords? Give me some insight. Is it a little bit tougher on the corporate side than the residential?
Oh yeah, corporate is definitely a bigger fish to fry because you know they're not here on the grounds where we are. We have to hire researchers to do some research to see where's the big fish in the ocean, you know. So and with them being across the city, the state, we have to seek them out. And once we do, and we let people sign petitions, we've had a great outcome with that. We did hundreds of phone calls to the office, flooded their emails. Also did some protests in front of people's homes and exposed them to Fox 9, which is our local news station here. We've done just videos where people have came from New York and just various different cities that wanted to expose these companies because of the work that we do. And it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing.
Yeah. So for someone who wants to get connected and really be a part of the struggle, how do they do that?
They can reach us. We have a Facebook, also with United Renters for Justice information. They can look us up on the internet. They can just reach out to us in United Renters for Justice. We have a north side location, which is North Minneapolis, which is right in the heart of the city. I'm over South Minneapolis in the George Floyd Square right now. We have that's our main location, and they can just reach out. We have information out there.
When we talk about tenants, I know that the tenant landscape has changed dramatically down through the years in terms of population, demographics, the whole 9 yards. We here in New York, of course, have to deal with NYCHA, and I know you're very well familiar with all the work that's going on here at NYCHA and holding them accountable. Are you optimistic? Because when we talk about NYCHA, it's an uphill battle for a lot of community-based organizations here to say, to take on NYCHA to get effective change and not just get a soundbite or a mini settlement, but really a huge thing that's going to create some traction and action. It takes a lot. But talk to me about yourself and out there in Minneapolis, how's it going for you in cracking that? Because it's a huge lift.
It is a very huge lift. But what I can tell you is, I'm so glad, I always heard when I was growing up, oh, you got a loud mouth, you talk too much. And I said, well, at this point in my life, I'm doing something actually to move the people and stay connected to my community. And that means exposing everything that I can about this company and letting people know, people that look like me, you have a strong, strong part of your body. And that's your mouth and your words, and being able to use that and to be able to tell the truth. Everything I've said about this company and exposed them and stuck with the people and told the people, we have research that can back that up. And also photos. I tell people to take photos. So staying in the loop with that and being in the connection with the people is my way. And I'm gonna always stay optimistic when it comes to fighting these corporate crooks, is what I like to call them, when it comes to housing, because we all need housing. I don't care what's the color of your skin. What you're dealing with, housing is pretty much the sanctuary of your whole life. So we need it, and I'm gonna continue to expose.
Yeah. What are some of the greatest things that you're seeing out there? Is it the infestation? Is it mold? Is it what? Bring us closer to home.
A lot of the things that we are facing with the complaints from the tenants and myself in the past was mold, because Minneapolis, we have basements. And so in the wintertime, when that spring comes and that snow begins to melt, these homes are flooded with their basements from the outside in, from that snow melting. Lack of heating is a really, really big thing. Someone homes may get hot, stay hot on the bottom level, and they don't have any heat on the second level. And so their families have to sleep in the front room. They have to also have stoves to provide extra heating, which is dangerous, very fire hazardous. And also a lot of infestations from cracks from those basements being flooded in the springtime. So I am seeing broken out windows, people's homes that have been shot, and they will not come out and repair those windows. So the families have to live with gun violence being a part of their eyesight every day, and having progress not coming to fix these homes. So they're being faced with just, a lot of issues, structural issues where people homes are shifting. I've been at somebody's house where they set a penny on the ground and it actually rolled out towards the streets because their houses were starting to shift and the whole foundation was cracking. And they actually had to deal with that for about a year, and their kids couldn't even be in the homes for about a year and a half. So it's been some devastating things that I've seen.
Talk to me about how we can get connected. For the people out there who are watching right now saying, listen, we want to unite with Minneapolis on some issues that are, their housing issues. We know that you partnered with New York City in the NYCHA. What can people be joining in on to really support and bolster your efforts out there?
Contact us. Again, United Renters for Justice, Minneapolis. And we reach out to a lot of people just as we tell them how we've been door knocking, because this is a different ball game. We're door knocking houses versus complexes, buildings. So we reach out to the tenants, and we want to see who is able to stand tall with us, who wants to walk and actually join the fight, like hitting these houses, telling their stories. And again, we feel like telling our stories firsthand is what keeps us all united with each other, joining the fight. And also just keeping it truthful. So if they want to reach out to us in any type of way, United Renters for Justice, we are here. We also support any organizations that are fighting against corporate or residential landlords, because we've done a lot of things working with our Keith Ellison, who has been supporting us. He's coming with a lot of heat. Our Attorney General's office, he's has one of the biggest lawsuits in their kind against this company. So it's, yeah, we're to be, not to be reckoned with.
No, I know. Well, listen, you say the name Keith Ellison, everybody knows he is a person that is definitely not having it. If you're familiar with George Floyd, Keith Ellison, but it's just more than just the George Floyd case. Really, a stand-up guy in terms of really speaking as an advocate for the people, particularly in the area of housing and housing injustice. So definitely there. Shanika, thank you so much for being with us. Got to leave it there, but thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a blessed day.
All righty. Shanika Henderson, tenant at United Renters for Justice. Take a quick break. Final segment right after this.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Or how did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
I've been running code as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
analytics and empathy. That's how I'm getting clients. You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I'm more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. Stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
Even though we didn't grow up together, he's my favorite brother.
Hey, sis.
I'm the baby of the family, and he's the gentle giant.
What you know about Port Georgia?
Man, please, that's a classic.
You know when they say people are a rare breed? Yeah, he's that.
Sorry, I'll be back in a few hours.
Don't worry, Sheikh. You know I'm for you.
I know.
Go get the football.
That was my favorite memory. He was always for you. This is a true story of me, Bridget Floyd, and this guy, George Perry Floyd Jr., my big brother.
And welcome back. As Israeli President Isaac Herzog visited New York City, the event brought together prominent leaders like Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams. Meanwhile, outside of the offices of the American Friends of Adarat Kohanim, a powerful demonstration took place. Over 500 New Yorkers took place and participated in the rally to protest the escalating Israeli settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. They stood united in their call for justice and peace in the region. At the forefront of this important cause is the passionate advocate for justice and the well-being of all New Yorkers. Today, we're honored to have a respected Assemblymember with us who's introduced groundbreaking legislation to address this issue head on. Joining us to share their point of view on the matter, we're joined by New York State Assemblymember of District 36, Zohran Mamdani. And thank you, Assemblymember, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Sorry about that. I had a little delay in my ear. But listen, as we talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's huge. And we know that, it's a hotly contested matter. But let's get your take on where we are today and what we're seeing, because as we talked a little bit in the lead, protesters outside, but give us your perspective.
My perspective is that oftentimes when you bring up Israel and you bring up Palestine, you hear the words that it's complicated, it's complex, it's difficult to get engaged or involved without having almost a PhD in the issue. But what is very simple is that New Yorkers believe that our state should not be subsidizing a violation of human rights, should not be subsidizing the violation of the Geneva Convention, should not be subsidizing what are effectively war crimes. And that's what's happening today. And so this legislation was introduced to ensure that we have a sense of consistency here in New York State, consistency with American foreign policy, which has a long-standing settled opposition to Israeli settlements, and a consistency with international law.
When we look at what's going on right now, obviously the U.S. involvement in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is of a hot debate. Your perspective?
My perspective is the fact that we here are funding so much of the violence that is taking place there. Right? We've seen since 1967 the number one factor in the dispossession of Palestinians from their homes has been the expansion of settlements. And in New York State, every year, at least $60 million is sent from organizations that this state considers to be charities to settler organizations outside of the bounds of what the international community recognizes Israel as. And so we have a responsibility here to stop the flow of that money, because $60 million a year is not just significant in its scale, it's also significant in the fact that it oftentimes makes up the majority of the operating revenue for those settler organizations which then use that money to force Palestinians out of their homes. We cannot have that continue to occur, and that's why the name of this legislation is not on our dime.
Yeah, I want to get to the not on our dime legislation because you're putting that forward, and it's got a lot of traction. Give us just basically the background to the bill for somebody who may not be so familiar. We talked in part much about it, but I want our viewers to be in full scope to know exactly the background to the legislation and what you're asking from to be passed by your fellow elected officials.
Absolutely. So the situation as it is today is that we have a number of organizations that are registered as charities in New York State, and that registration falls under the jurisdiction of New York State law. Now, we know, looking at these organizations, that they are not in any way engaging in a charitable purpose. So late last year, a number of organizers and groups with the findings of their research of how these charities were engaging in violations of international human rights law, and how New York State was allowing that to take place. So what this legislation does at its core is that it makes explicit in the law that if you are an organization that is financing the violation of the Geneva Convention specific to settlements, Israeli settlements, that is not a charitable purpose. And if you ask an average New Yorker on the street if they believe that expelling people from their homes or creating religious-specific settlements on the sites of occupied land is a charitable purpose, they will tell you, obviously, it's not. And so what we are doing is bringing that reality in line with New York State law.
And there is some conflict here because you do have those who actually say that, that there's a ploy to demonize Jewish charities with connections to Israel. How do you answer?
I think first and foremost, that response to this legislation is a mischaracterization of what this legislation does. And the reason it's a mischaracterization is because there's an understanding that you can't actually oppose this legislation on what it actually says. If we get to the issue of Jewish charities in Israel. That's not what this legislation is about. It's not about what happens within Israel. It's about what happens in the settlements. And the settlements are not understood by international consensus to be a part of Israel. They are actually on occupied Palestinian territory. Now, if you are a charity that is doing work within Israel as well as in the settlements and violating international law on the latter case, then you need to stop doing the second. Because it doesn't matter how many things that you do that are legally permissible. If you're engaging in any illegal act, that needs to stop. That is an understanding of how we operate on all other issues. But when it comes to this one, for some reason, people are asking for a double standard. I would also just say there have been a number of attempts to say that this legislation is in opposition to the Jewish community in this country, the Jewish community in New York State. That is not the case. And first and foremost, what we need to recognize is that 58% of American Jewish voters oppose American funding of settlement activity. Majority. This legislation is in line with the wishes of the majority of American Jewish voters in this country. And any attempts to paint it otherwise are simply mischaracterizations.
Yeah. With the legislation, let's go to it right quickly. Those who may be impacted by settlement funding groups to seek damages and court orders to shut them down. Now, the question that people are asking is, how do you make sure that this provision not misused, not exploited? How do we go about making this happen?
I'm very glad that you brought that up because the legislation has three parts. And so we've talked about the first part. Now we're getting into the second and the third part, which is the legal recourse to this settlement activity. What we have seen already is the case is it is very difficult for Palestinians to find lawyers who are willing to work on their behalf to pursue justice through the courts. So I have a full confidence that if and when we pass this legislation, we're not going to see the court system be overwhelmed in a way that they cannot respond to or engage with. Rather, what we're going to see is the creation of an avenue where finally those who have had their livelihoods, their homes taken away from them, have a way to seek justice. And I have full confidence in our court system that we'll be able to sort between those which are spurious claims and those which are legitimate claims.
Yeah. You know, you got people on this side of the table that say, hey, I understand where you're coming from. Then you have other people on the side of the table who sit the same seat I sit in and say, I see a little bit different. I see possibly the fact that when it comes to the Israeli-U.S. relations, this could be something that could actually tank U.S.-Israeli relations. How do you answer those?
You know, I think that this legislation in and of itself may not be able to fundamentally change American and Israeli relations, but what it seeks to do is change our complicity here in New York State. And, you know, I think to the core of your question, if it is a relationship built on the facilitation and the funding of injustice, then it is not a relationship that should be maintained. Relationships should be maintained on the basis of shared values. And here in New York State, we value human rights, we value justice, we value equality in front of the law. And we are seeing that our values and our practices are out of step. And it is my job as a legislator and the job of every legislator to ensure that there is a consistency between both of those things. And so that is what I intend to do with this legislation. And that is why there are so many New Yorkers who are so passionate about this. Because as you said, 500 New Yorkers came out to protest at Friends of Ateret Kohanim, one of the many organizations registered as a charity in New York state law that is financing this Israeli settler violence. But also, we've had more than 5,000 letters sent by New Yorkers to their state legislators asking them to support this legislation.
Yeah. I want to get your take on this here, and you tell me how you can do this. If you do this, I'm sure we'll be the network that breaks the exclusive, and I'm sure you'll be all across. But, you know, we talk about achieving a peaceful conflict of resolution here. I mean, it's something that all of us want to see. But if we can play it out your way, how do we do it?
You know, I think my way is looking for equality. That's the key thing. It's not for me to determine, you know, how much of the land will go this way or how it'll be governed. I mean, the key thing is that no matter what future we have, it is a future where every single person enjoys equality. Because what we have seen is for far too long, we have hidden behind words and ideas that at their core ask for a legal inequality or a social inequality or a political inequality. And what I fight for here in New York State is what I fight for anywhere in the world, which is full equality under the law. And so that's what I hope to see. And I think that as a New York State legislator, my job, my role is to ensure that what we do in this state is reflective of our values. And so far, what we have been allowing to happen through our state has been the rejection of equality, has been in fact the facilitation and the funding of inequality through dispossession of both legal means as well as violent physical means. And that's not something that we can allow to continue any longer.
Let's talk about where the legislation is before we get out of here, and give us a little bit of an insight as to where it is on the process and what do you see happening in the near future.
So we introduced this legislation towards the end of the last legislative session, and we understand this to be a multi-year campaign. This is going to be a piece of legislation that faces a long road to passage, and the reason for that is so often in our state and in our country, when you dare to speak about human rights and you dare them to apply to Palestinians, you are hit with a number of mischaracterizations along the way, and that extends the journey. But I have full confidence that we are going to build a constituency and a coalition that will be undeniable in calling for human rights for all, applicable to Palestinians, and to ensure that in this state, we do not subsidize the violation of human rights.
Yeah, what does that coalition look like so far? Can you tell us numbers?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I've mentioned the fact that 5,000 people have sent letters to their legislators. 500 people have come out for a protest in Herald Square on a weekday afternoon. And we are looking to have town halls across New York City over the rest of the summer and into the fall. And I'm very confident that we're going to see a coalition of New Yorkers that is reflective of the original set of groups that brought this legislation to my office, groups that include Jewish Voices for Peace, Center for Constitutional Rights, the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, Adala Justice Project. This is a wide breadth across the ideological spectrum as well as across the spectrum of New Yorkers. And that's what we've seen time and again when we talk to New Yorkers is it doesn't matter where you live in this city. It doesn't even matter what your political beliefs are. Oftentimes, all you want to see is a set of consistency and equality and the end of a contradiction. And that's what this legislation will do.
And so, how do people tap in to support the legislation and get behind your cause?
So the number one way I would say is go to our website, which is notonourdime.com. And if you're looking to send a letter to your legislator, go to notonourdime.com/take action. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us. We enjoy having you, and certainly a conversation that's worth having, and we'll continue to do so. All righty.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
You too. All righty, we'll come to the end of our show today. Hope you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Bronx social justice and anti-violence forums. And if you want to rewatch the episode, guess what? The cable cast is right here on BronxNet.org. If you want to join the conversation and present your point of view, well, visit our social media at BronxNet TV. Join us next week. We continue to elevate the discussion, bringing further awareness across the globe. I am Daren Jaime saying take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.